Hello students, and welcome to the last of our workshops for this semester. This workshop is focusing on reading for the main idea, and it actually ties into our last workshop on paraphrasing, so we'll make that connection in a minute. So main idea, what is it? The main idea is what something is about. It's the main or central focus. Or as this little guy brings out, it's the big picture. So in other words, it's the point. It's why the author is writing. It's in a paragraph, it's the one thing that really stands out. We call that the gist. Sometimes you might hear that word, the gist of something. It's the main point, the main focus. It's the idea that the author is trying to impress upon you as the reader. So looking at a very basic example of what that would be, we see here a main idea of roller coasters move in different ways. And then the 3 points underneath all support that main idea as they give examples of the different ways that roller coasters can move. So we have loop upside down, twist and turn, rise high, and drop. So finding the main idea is really important for, I think, these two reasons. It helps immensely with comprehension as you're trying to understand what you're reading. If you can always identify the main idea of the passage that you're on, it will help you tie that to the next main idea and the next main idea, and it kind of just snowballs and builds upon itself. So being able to identify the main idea just helps with overall reading comprehension and understanding. The second thing is, as mentioned, paraphrasing, because paraphrasing is being able to identify the main idea, summarize that along with maybe some of the supporting details. And we know that this is very useful when we are writing our own papers if we want to use information from other sources, that if we can find the main idea and then put that into our own words, then we can paraphrase, and it really adds credibility to our own writing. So very useful, especially for college students. So how do we do this? If we look here, she gives us some hints with her little magnifying glass points. Look at the title and pictures. So while we may not always have pictures, titles, subtitles, like chapter titles and then subtitles within the chapter can be really good clues. Often the main idea is in the first and or last sentence. So if after we've read a passage and we're not quite sure what the main idea is, we can check those sentences first and see if it doesn't stand out as something that's summarizing the point the author's trying to make. Another good thing to do is to look for clue words, and these will be repeated over and over. And you'll see this in our examples, so you'll understand what that means. Okay, so in other words, this is what we will do. We will read the selected reading and then think to ourselves, what is the central idea being shared? Then we'll go back and look for repeated words or concepts, because those are good clues, and then we'll also check the first and last sentences and see if the idea that we think is the central idea is expressed in one or both of those sentences. And then we can check the other sentences in the paragraph to see if they support what we think is the main idea, or perhaps maybe that's the main idea, one of the other sentences. Because it does not have to be the first or last. It could be any sentence in the paragraph. It's just typically it's first or last. Okay, so first, a simple example, a short paragraph, and it says, there are many kinds of people in the world. Some people are givers. They tend to give freely of themselves to others without expecting anything in return. A second group of people are takers. They often view people as valuable based on how they can benefit or take from the relationship. Many times these people take what they don't even need. Okay, so in that short paragraph, notice how many times we see this word people. People, 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 people. So at the most basic level, this paragraph is about people. I think we would all agree. So what would we say is the main idea? So let's check in the first and last sentences and see. The first sentence says there are many kinds of people in the world. Okay, that could be it. And let's check the last sentence. Many times these people take what they don't even need. So if this were the main idea, the whole rest of the paragraph would need to be talking about these people who are takers. And we know that that is not what the whole paragraph's about because we also have the givers. So this is not the main idea, this final sentence. It seems more fitting that the first sentence would be the main idea. There are many kinds of people in the world. And we can check this by looking at the rest of our sentences. Some people are givers. Does that support this idea that there's many different kinds or many kinds? Yeah, because it's giving an example of one kind, right? And then it kind of defines who these people are. This next sentence defines people are givers. So this sentence is actually support to the first, support to the main idea. And then the second group of people are takers. So that's also supporting this idea of many kinds of people, right? And then they're defined. So yes, for this paragraph, the idea that the first sentence contains the main idea would be correct. Let's look at one more example, and I'll quickly read this one. It says, to many parents, the infant's crying may be mainly an irritation, especially if it continues for long periods. But crying serves important functions for the child as well as for the parents. For the child, crying helps improve lung capacity and the respiratory system. Perhaps more important, the cry serves as a signal of distress. When babies cry, they indicate that they are hungry or in pain, and this is important information for parents. So right away, we see every single sentence has a word, crying or cry, that is really a flag to us as the reader that this paragraph is about babies crying, right? So now what specifically is the author trying to tell us? Well, let's go check the first sentence again. And it says, to many parents, the infant's crying may be mainly an irritation, especially if it continues for long periods. So now we have to ask, does everything that comes after this sentence support this idea that infants crying is mainly an irritation? Well, let's see. But crying serves important functions for the child as well as for the parents. No. This, and especially because we have this signpost but, is actually the opposite idea of this, right? It's telling us that crying serves important functions. It's not just an irritation. So let's keep looking. For the child, crying helps improve lung capacity. And then the cry can serve as a signal of distress. And then when babies cry, they indicate hunger or pain. So actually in this one, let's look at that last sentence. When babies cry, they indicate that they are hungry or in pain, and this is important information for parents. Would this be the main idea, this last sentence? I don't think so, because the whole paragraph isn't just about indicating hunger or pain to parents, right? If it were, all the other sentences would have to support this idea about the crying indicating hunger or pain. So let's actually go back to the second sentence. And this is kind of this is a big signpost, red flag to us that this statement is then changing directions. So if we see what this says, but crying serves important functions for the child as well as for the parents. If we look at this as the main idea, does everything after it support it? And yes, because the child crying, or for the child, the crying does this. It improves lung capacity and respiratory system. So that's an important function. And then the cry serving as a signal of distress, that's an important function. And then specifically it indicating hunger or pain to the parents, That's crying serving an important function. So everything's going back to this main idea. Crying serves important functions, right? So this first sentence here is almost like a hook for this paragraph. It draws you in because it's something people can relate to, especially if you have children. So you're kind of like, oh, where's this going? But then it quickly turns and gives us the main idea here about important functions, and then everything after that is supporting that. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Let's look at one last bigger example. This is from the Bain book. First reading it, it says, one recent series of studies even found that laughter can make a big difference in learning. Mark Beeman and his colleagues at Northwestern University asked students to watch short videos of a comedy routine by Robin Williams before they attempted to solve word puzzles. Those students did significantly better with the problems than did students who saw other films that had either neutral or anxiety-inducing content. The psychologists have found that a positive mood makes all the difference in the world, and that laughter, and perhaps the enjoyment that comes with it, prepares the brain to solve complex problems, especially to develop that sudden insight that cuts through a jungle of mental confusion. As I interviewed highly accomplished people, I was struck by the ease with which they laughed, the lilt in their voices, and the pleasure they took in thinking about the world. So if we first look for repeated words or concepts, I think we can all see laughter is in here a couple times. We have laughter there, we have laughed. I thought that, and laughter here. But then we also have comedy, we have positive mood, enjoyment. So we have all these words, pleasure, that are really pointing to the idea that laughter, comedy, positive moods, positivity, something about that would definitely be what this paragraph is about because it's repeated and repeated. So now let's look and see if we can, I actually think I give it away on the next slide, but I did identify the main point for you. So let's look at how it's supported by these points. So the first sentence, again, is the main point or the main idea for this one, for this paragraph. One recent series of studies even found that laughter can make a big difference in learning. So then they have this study where they have short comedy videos shown and the students did better with their problems. So that's supporting this idea that laughter makes a difference in learning. Then they have this second finding that laughter prepares the brain to solve complex problems, also supporting that laughter can make a difference in learning. And then an example of the highly accomplished people that the author had interviewed having this quality of a lot of laughter in their life. So all three of these points after support the big idea that laughter can make a big difference in learning. So again, we see it often does fall as the first sentence in a paragraph because it's similar to a mini thesis almost. So you want your reader to know where you're going. And so a lot of times it's put first thing in the paragraph and then you support it with details. But again, it could come at the end. You could build up to it. Or as we saw, it could be the second sentence. It could be the third sentence. But those were a couple examples. And then I wanted to leave you with this link that goes to a website that has, again, some more just the basic concepts around main ideas. So you can review those. And then a lot of examples you can read through. And then even some practice exercises. So you can read paragraphs and look and see which of the options seems like the best main idea for that paragraph. So this is just more practice for you so that you feel confident in finding main ideas. So when your research or writing requires you to paraphrase, you will be 100% confident in doing that. Okay, so I would just like to say it has been a pleasure guiding you through this semester, and I hope you all have a happy, happy summer. Take care. Goodbye.